All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
Today's guests are Neuro founders Kent Yoshimura and Ryan Jen. Neuro is an elite company that produces products you can take anywhere, anytime to refresh your state of mind and do more by simply popping their gums and mints. Their products can be taken on nearly any kind of diet and containing a documented blend of vitamins designed to energize the brain and body. They allow you to get energized and focused without packing in dangerous chemicals, packing in the sugar, and especially avoiding that annoying energy crash afterwards. Both elite athletes, Kent and Ryan, were inspired to create their first original gum when Ryan was involved in a snowboarding accident that left him paraplegic. In their search for a product that would keep their energy high as well as their focus, they realised there wasn't anything on the market that would help them to accomplish it in a healthy and effective way. And thus, Neuro was born. And in this interview, we discuss how they built the brand, product creation, how to maintain friendships, especially during difficult times, building a community, and what it's like to take a startup from product to lifestyle brand. This is a great interview for anyone who has a dream of starting their own business, is letting fear hold them back from chasing a dream, or thinks they're not good enough to succeed. Now, before we get to the interview, I just wanted to say this was recorded a while ago. It was recorded using another mic, and unfortunately it let me down in bits of this. It didn't record as well as it should have. I've tried in the edit to go back and resolve these issues, but there are some parts that are a wee bit dodgy on the audio quality. I hope that doesn't annoy you too much or take away from the enjoyment of listening to it. Kent and Ryan give some awesome advice. It's more a case of my mic playing up, so hopefully it doesn't annoy you too much. It's probably just the first 5 to 10 minutes, but it's Kent and Ryan you came for. Let's get to them. And now, let's get to the interview. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. It's an amazing product you guys have come out. You're now major stars after your TV debut over in Shark Tank. But for people who maybe don't know the names and have never heard of Neuro, can you just go into a little bit about who you are and why you're going to become superstar businessmen soon?
Neuro basically is what we're trying to do is basically change the way people look at health, ideally. So instead of taking supplements that sit in your medicine cabinet and you have to remember to take them every day, what if you could just have health in your pocket all the time in the form of gum and mints?
And what about yourself, Ryan? How would you describe what Neuro is?
Yeah, my version of Neuro, so the way I would describe Neuro and the company that Kent and I are building is functional gum and mints. So it all started with Neuro Gum, and what we were looking for was a better alternative to getting energy. So when Kent and I met in college, all that was kind of really out there was like coffee or energy drinks in the world. And, at the time, like we wanted a healthier alternative. So we were taking just pure forms of energy in the form of like caffeine, L-theanine, B vitamins. And we wanted to package that in a more accessible, approachable manner. So something as shareable and approachable like gum.
Cool. Well, I've been a big fan of cognitive enhancers, and it's definitely become a lot more mainstream now with the sort of I suppose you could call it the human guinea pig kind of like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and these kind of people who talk about supplements and working the brain. And I've interviewed Aubrey Marcus, who the company develops certain things through On It. I mean, was that something? Do you think it was your sporting backgrounds that led you to creating something like this? Was it to scratch your own itch, or did you see the market initially for this and it was a bonus that was going to help you both?
Well, so like the whole thing with nootropics, it all started because of nootropics and experimentation and like using ourselves as guinea pigs. So during school, Ryan and I met in college. I was training pretty seriously in martial arts, and the supplements that were available in the marketplace during that time were like Red Bull, Adderall, or coffee. Like it didn't. It was like the era of like C4 pre-workout. It was crazy, Wild West, and none of those things really struck my fancy, at least, and um, I didn't feel like it was improving my performance. So, you know, I just like dug in, started doing research, buying supplements on my own, joining forums and seeing what other people were doing, reading up on Tim Ferriss and the early, I guess, um, nootropics influencers. And yeah, like the supplements that were getting mixed in my room were essentially V0 of Neuro.
I heard it was like a scene from Scarface. A lot of white powder lying around.
That was my perception of it. So yeah, like, well, just to give you a little bit of background, like Kent and I met in college. Kent was studying neuroscience at the time. I was doing chemistry and economics, and I think we were always fascinated about balance and performance. And at the time, Kent was also training heavily with the Olympic judo team out in Japan, training MMA, fighting Muay Thai in Thailand. And I had come off of a pretty serious career in cross country and track. And we were just kind of always looking at how do we optimize like our minds and our bodies, and how do we find that balance. And Kent was really, really diving deep into like the Reddit nootropic forums, finding like what people were taking themselves and what was working for them. And like Kent was saying, it was like version 0 of NeuroGum was like kind of starting in his room, blending all these different supplements that all look like white powders, like a scene from Scarface is probably the most accurate description. But figuring out what worked for you, and when you're saying like how we started the business, it was really kind of long before that in college when Ken and I met in like 2007. It was about like what worked for us, and it wasn't until years later, until like 2013, when we realized that this product can be pretty universal. If people want something more accessible, more approachable, why can't we just change the format in which supplements are taken?
Because I loved your idea that, it looks a bit strange to be popping pills, because I've done powerlifting where people give you the bit of a strange look if you're taking the creatine, the fish oil, you're rattling pill boxes, you come back and forth. And I love the way that you implement the shareability of GAM, the social sort of construct of that. And it helps share breath. So, why do you think men struggle with their energy? What was it that you noticed that causes, what factors increase and improve energy that you found? And why didn't like the Red Bulls and things like that, the sugar laced drinks, why do you think they didn't work as well? So, what made you then decide to go for another sort of, another way of getting the absorption, but without that sort of afternoon crash?
I mean, a lot of those supplements, or even Red Bull, like you said, are filled with sugar, and the ingredients are not necessarily desirable. So, when you're training, I was probably training like 4 to 6 hours a day, and then like I felt much more in tune with my body then. So, the micro factors of taking any of these supplements would have what felt at that time a profound effect, whether it was psychological or physiological. And like there's an aspect of nootropics which is great in my opinion. The element of research and you trying to figure yourself out, and you trying to figure out um, factors that do improve with benchmarks that you've placed on yourself. Like those are all things that tie in with not just the supplements themselves, but a mentality on how to become, how to keep improving yourself. So when all those things come into play, and the community that you're involved with also reinforces that mentality, I think packaging it into a lifestyle product like NeuroGum or NeuroMints just makes perfect sense. Like it's like creating a lifestyle product that fits in your pocket that you can take with you whenever you want to improve your energy levels or to calm and provide clarity to your mind, while also promoting a lifestyle for active people, for people that want to accomplish more.
Can you explain what the Neuro is? What does the name actually stand for?
So, yeah, I think again, like with our backgrounds in neuroscience and chemistry, neuro was always about how do you enhance your state of mind more so than how do you take a product that like it gets you jacked up like a Red Bull. So, because if everything's, like with what we were saying earlier on the mentality that comes with researching and developing your own products and setting benchmarks for yourself that you constantly try to improve on, those are factors that can be controlled with the mind. And putting yourself in the right place mentally within the brain uh, can push you further than simply a product itself. And, you know, ideally, and what we're trying to go for is harnessing that into our products. That's the name.
Perfect. So, could you go into a little bit about how would you reverse engineer a product like this? Because you know the thing that you want to fix, which is the energy level. So, how then do you start working back, looking at the ingredients, the compounds and the sort of the percentages, etc., and the sort of concoctions that you need to then to increase that level, but also, like you said earlier, to avoid the sugar, the sugar crashes, and avoid all the sort of the actual extra ingredients that a lot of these sort of sports drinks and things like that, because they pile on the pound. So how then do you work back from your current goal to what you need from that product and then start creating your various supplements?
Yeah, for us, our biggest challenge was just the sheer volume. So with beverages and shots and pills, you can kind of stuff as much in it and mask a lot of the flavor with a ton of sugar or just water, liquid, etc. But for us with gummy mints, it's like 1.7 grams. So we don't have much to work with, especially when we have active ingredients that make up a substantial portion of the total volume. So I guess working backwards, it was always about creating a product that one had to work, and two, what was the flavor and taste. So if our goal was to make like a really good tasting gum or mint, we wouldn't have been in the functional gum and mint space. So obviously we had to like experiment. There was a ton of research on like what ingredients and what milligrams and what dosage really worked. So we knew what we had to put in, and then from there it was working backwards and trying to get the flavor right, improving the taste profile, working with chemists like flavor chemists to get the gum chew profile better so the gum would last longer. It was a long process, and that from the time that we even launched in 2015 on Indiegogo, it was about a year and a half to figure out the right formulation and getting the chemistry right.
I mean, because that's going to be the next question was about Indiegogo. Was you use social media to create a sort of like a drive and a fan base and a community for your project, and something I get a lot out of is people saying, "No, I could never do that. I could never go and play competitively or do X, Y, Z." And a lot of guys kind of go to their deathbeds with regrets, and it's really sad. And that's why I was super proud to sort of find out about your story because you guys decided that you had an idea, but you overcame that fear. You went through it and you built this little empire for yourselves, which is getting bigger and bigger by the day. But what do you think holds guys, well, everybody back from chasing their dream, for creating a business, for giving the goal for what they want in life?
I can go first. I would say the one word that kind of sticks to my head would be fear. And for us, so for me at least, it was like fear of failure or fear of not trying. But I think the fear, I would say the fear of not trying was outweighed the fear of not doing it at all. And so Kent and I went into the business saying like, hey, we're like best friends, we're like brothers. Whatever happens in business, that's going to be separate from our friendship. And I know that there's been horror stories before where, friends, try going into business together and that doesn't work out. But for us, it was just like we had this idea. We knew that it was a solid idea. We bounced it around and we just didn't give up. And it was the fear of not trying that really kind of got us going.
What about you, Kent? Did you have any sort of fear and anxiety about going into business, about sort of pursuing a passion of yours?
Um, yeah, I think I think fear and anxiety is like an innate part of all humans. That's for sure, and the biggest mind block when it comes to doing anything. Um, And to echo Ryan's point, I think there's a mentality in business where you pursue money for and that's all you pursue, and that's the end goal to why you're starting anything. And the reality is, like, yes, that's obviously a goal because Ryan and I have Neuro as a business, but there's another side of it, which is like, okay, but we maintain our integrity on certain things. Like whether it's like the ingredients we use or like the type of people we try to tell to or the type of like marketing tactics we do, like in no way are we ever going to compromise any of our um again integrity or I guess bear mental stress that's unnecessary to make this into a thing. What we do have is a great product, and we have a great community that backs it, and all these things contribute in very healthy ways to helping the business grow in the way that it has versus pursuing it in whether it's sleazy ways or whatever it may be. So,
Because there's definitely some very dodgy business decisions from other companies in there, and that's what I loved about your branding, your marketing. It was also pure, wholesome, and you genuinely seem to care about your audience.
Yeah, especially in the supplement space too, and that's something that we were like very cognizant about.
Right. I think another thing about the supplement industry that we're trying to unveil and make more transparent is we're just being very transparent with like what's in the gum. So no like hidden proprietary blends or anything like that. We're just like, this is exactly what you're going to get like in every piece of gum or mint. And, the feedback over the last 5 years has been amazing where, we get, customers who are like 89 years old and they consume our product and they say that I love it because I know exactly what I'm going to get. I know I'm going to get 40 milligrams of caffeine every piece, and that caffeine is sourced from natural caffeine sources, and so that's always like kind of going back to Ken's point was having the integrity and building a brand that was very transparent, which sometimes is not always the case with supplement industries or supplement companies in general.
It's certainly very true. I mean, and especially for people who are maybe not aware of like the science or the sort of the understanding of the ingredients and what they provide or what a certain amount of it can do to a body or the recommended daily allowance, etc. So, how did you find the scientific support and the journal papers? Did you do double blind testing and things like that? What was your kind of way of getting into an industry where there is such a big monopoly by these big companies? How did you get the sort of initial support to prove what amazing benefits your product has?
And like early on, the majority of our support on Indiegogo thankfully came from the initial as part of it, at least, came from the nootropics communities that we were already a part of. So like, making the post on Reddit and a community that I was commenting on every single day, all those people have the same mindset of like, okay, there's a certain amount of research that you have to do with any of these supplements to see how they affect your body. Those people were the early adopters, which helped us set a foundation for how we move forward as a company. And then on like a secondary level, the partnerships that we did end up making, whether it's with our manufacturers, which is like a small, private manufacturer that isn't owned by like a major corporation like Wrigley, or partnering with our suppliers who, funny enough, they also supply for Onnit and a lot of companies, but they're the largest independent nutraceutical manufacturer in the United States. And like having that foundation of partnerships of people that already know how to build credible backing in the products that they do create helped us kind of structure our business in a way that's not just mixing supplements like Scarface in a bedroom.
So what was the product creation sort of timeline like? Were there like many revisions and many kind of failed attempts at this? For somebody who's thinking, I've got an idea, but I would like to do this. These guys are a real inspiration, but how long would it have taken you to get it to market? How long did it to get the kind of the first batch, but also to source the initial funding for the research and development for the creation? Are we talking years here, or is this a kind of build a little at a time and just keep expanding and evolving?
Yeah, well, for us, it was kind of a long haul where Kent and I had graduated from college, and we both had full time jobs. I was working for an internet streaming tech company. Kent was working in the music industry and was a muralist for the city of LA. And so we had full time jobs, and it wasn't it wasn't where we had a lot of capital or investors or anything like that. We kind of didn't even know what the venture capital world was or what it entailed. So we're just trying to save up money where we could to start doing like $5,000 R&D batch to do this idea. And when we got our first like batch, it came in Ziploc bags, and there was like version A, version B, version C, and it was like different sweeteners, different like ratios of the caffeine, the B vitamins, the L-theanine, and we would sample it around. I sampled it to my team at Hulu here in like Santa Monica, and get like very honest feedback from some, and very kind of like polite feedback from others were like, oh yeah, it's pretty good, or and to be completely honest, the product tasted really bad. It was so hard to get it right on the first try, and I would say that most times you never get it right on the first time, and it took a long time, like I said earlier, from the time we started the company to finding the manufacturer and getting the first like product out on Indiegogo. It was like a year and a half, and that was just like slowly but surely like saving up some savings from our full-time jobs to be able to do that. And while other companies and other founders might jump in feet first and raise some capital from friends and family, we try to do it a little bit slower. And that was just like our path. It could have gone either way. We could have probably expedited the process if we had investors, and we had a hard deadline that we had to launch by this point. But we launched when we felt it was ready, and we were kind of running out of our personal savings to find more, to fund more R&D samples. And we got to the point where we had a batch that a formulation batch that was good enough in terms of flavor, but it worked, and people felt that focus, that a little bit of energy. And that's when we decided to launch that Indiegogo campaign. And that's when Kent and Tyler, who was our first employee, who was like monumental in getting this company started, reaching out to writers from Time magazine, getting approached by the producer from Dr. Oz. It was kind of like emailing out cold to a bunch of writers, and I think Ken could speak to that a lot more in depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, you have to kind of make do with what you have, and a lot of it is like, all right, we don't have the capital because we didn't fundraise that shit. We didn't even know what fundraising was. So it's like, we have the money that we saved up. What we can do is try to email as many writers as we possibly can, as many journalists as we possibly can, and see what they think about it. What we can do is try to design our first packaging based on pre-existing like gum packages in photos,
Yeah,
without like hiring a.
yeah, we found guidelines on Google of like other gum boxes, and we basically modeled it after that. And Kent designed it, and that was our first design packaging, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, like all this stuff. It was like, all right, how do we like Frankenstein stuff together at first? And it's I'm a fond believer in learning by doing. So over these past 4.5, 5 years, like that's exactly what I think happened. We learned by doing the first stages of fulfillment, even like shipping a product out of my apartment, like Ryan coming over and packaging boxes on the weekends, and like designing the website ourselves, like getting like emailing journalists, and like going out and fundraising finally. And like all these things are just like, to go into a business expecting you'll make money instantly and everything's gonna work perfectly is like expecting life to just work out perfectly the way you imagine it to work out. Like every single day there's something new that pops up, but at the same time those new things that pop up are learning experiences, and those experiences ultimately you know, we're very grateful for.
Right. Yeah, we're super grateful, and I think it didn't obviously happen overnight, and I think the way that we did fundraise the company and grow slowly and kind of organically was that we learned by doing. So, there's always ways where you can save money, and there's definitely times where you have to spend money. So, we invested in R&D, and that was like our main goal was to make the product better and better. So we couldn't cut corners when it came to R&D, but we could definitely cut corners when it came to fulfillment and shipping out product. When instead of having a professional fulfillment house with warehouse people that are going to ship this out in a proper fulfillment center, it was all the product, which was 4,000 pounds of gum when we first ordered our minimum order quantity. 4,000 pounds of gum just sitting at Ken's apartment, and us packaging boxes, us buying tape, and writing handwritten cards and taping everything, going to the post office, once or twice a day, depending on how many orders came through. And those are the places where you might be able to cut costs. But you have to determine, I think, early on what the priorities are and where you can save money, but also where you have to make the right investments. And for us, it was R&D.
Because that's what I love about your story is, that there's all these kind of little things came up, but you just kept going. You built up the resilience, the mental toughness. You found the solutions to what you needed. You went past all the kind of usual BS excuses that most guys would have to go and create their own product. Was you went and found the people you needed. You went and found out how to cold email, busy influencers and get in front of them and promote your products. You found about R&D. You Googled to find what you need. Was that how you basically found the resources you need? You just Googled it? Is that the kind of sources, or were there particular methods that you used to sort of source the expertise that you needed in various ways at all?
Oh, I mean, Google is like your best friend.
Google really is your best friend. I mean, you could find so much information. I mean, Googling the gum box die lines was how we got our packaging. Or figuring out, like Kent and Tyler did an amazing job figuring out how to reach these writers, and it was like literally searching writers that would write have already written about a story that might fall in line with yours, and then just emailing that writer, because oftentimes that writer is going to have their email address at the end of the article. So just like kind of being creative and kind of rolling up your sleeves and just searching and doing it. I think there's like no easy answer in that sense.
There's also a bunch of forums out there, like Reddit is an amazing community to learn a lot of things.
Our entrepreneur, I think Kent was like always sending me articles about, entrepreneurs writing their experiences and giving it little insights on what worked for them. And internet.
Like the doing part is definitely like, I think, yeah, ultimately, like you could read a bunch of stuff on these forums also though, and then it's like it's how you end up doing it. It's going to be specific to your business. There's no right answer. So it's like even with Google and forums, it's always a starting point, but then doing it, iterating, and again that process of just like, okay, learning by doing, and because it's going to have to be molded to you.
So how then do you take, you've got that £4,000, £4,000 of the gum sitting in your accommodation. I think you said in another interview you use skateboards to help push it in. That, and there was like no fulfillment center and stuff like that. And you took this amazing chance and it's expanded amazingly for you. But how do you market this product? Like, how do you get in front of these massive competitors? Because I couldn't find any negative sort of comments about your product or yourselves. All I could find was maybe a bit too much packaging was used initially, and then you rebranded it to cut down on the amount of plastic you used. But how have you managed to get in such a crowded market where I think it was something like £32 billion worth of energy drinks, for example, was sold? How are you creating such a well-known and respected product against such giants like these companies?
I mean, I think a lot of it is like Ryan and I do try to be be a part of a lot of these processes. Like we're not hiding behind the veil of marketing or anything. We're very honest about the ingredients we use. We're very honest about you know what we say on these podcasts as well. And uh, like we were saying, like very early on in this interview, like the supplement industry is full of lies, and we definitely do not. Since the very beginning, we want to that at like keep the flaws of the supplement industry in the back of our heads so we don't make those mistakes. And on top of that, I think the fact that the company launched on the back of like in many ways like a Reddit AMA when on our nootropics with people asking us questions, us reading customer feedback one by one because the customer service line was attached to my phone number, or like we were getting all the emails to ourselves, and we
Yeah,
were
we
getting
still get customer
emails.
service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kent gets a lot more than I do, but Kent definitely gets phone calls to his personal cell like
oh my
quite
God,
often.
I got like PTSD.
I am not surprised. Just running a small podcast like myself, and it's just shocking. Have you ever reached inbox zero for a while?
It's just
I mean,
like, oh my God,
it's crazy. It's crazy too because we have customers. I mean, the when we started, it was on e-commerce, so we were shipping product not just in the West Coast but East Coast, and at the time like we were sending one-off requests to people in the UK or Germany, and we get phone calls like at all times of the day, so it was pretty unpredictable. I think Kent got the grunt of that one for sure in terms of getting calls literally at all times of the day.
So when you had these boxes in your in your flat, and you were getting ready, and you were coming over and helping each other pack, and you were getting through that initial kind of the money was going away as you were spending on research and development, and you're really sort of pushing the boat out, and you're fighting, kind of like try to find the information you need. Did you have any issues with friends and family? Because a big thing is a lot of times they mean the best for us, but they will sometimes try to sort of cut your dream away, because they don't want to see you taking the risk. They don't want you getting the chance of getting hurt or losing money. Did you have any sort of issues with negativity coming from that side? How did you deal with any sort of naysayers? Because unfortunately, some friends can be like the crabs in the bucket. They try to pull you back in because they don't want to see somebody else succeeding. Did you have any kind of sort of knockback from anybody while you're in the initial creation stage?
I'm sure we definitely did, but there's that adage like forget the haters. It's I think I think I don't know. I'm like looking back, and in my head, there's definitely moments where like I couldn't fall asleep because of anxiety in this business, but there's also moments where it's just like I probably just blocked certain things out of my memory because it doesn't like negativity in many ways doesn't matter.
I would literally that would literally be my answer. Is I'm sure that we had some pushback from friends and family that might have been like, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this?" But I think I blocked a lot of that out. And if I were to answer that question, just straight up without having to think about it, I would say no. Everyone was super encouraging, but
Yeah.
I know that wasn't the case. I know for a fact that our parents, Kent and I, our parents were very supportive, but I think they were also like good parents. They were just concerned that it would work out, and they didn't want us to be disappointed if we failed, etc. But once they knew that we were in it and we were going for it, they've been nothing but extremely supportive. And same with our friends. They've they often message us when we get featured on a shout out from a Joe Rogan, or we're on some magazine on BuzzFeed. They message us because they're like, hey, I just checked this out, and so they throw it on their radar, and they're very supportive about it. And in the beginning, it was, collectively, it was a lot of support, a lot of encouragement.
I mean, that's definitely something I love, is that the positivity you have. You've built this great sort of collection of people working for you. You've got friends, you've got who are giving you a lot of they're really selling your story as much as the product itself. And I've never seen a sort of bad word about you. I've seen, like you're saying on your comments, there's a lot of older people, younger people, non-athletes using your products. And they're really kind of giving you a lot of good feedback from it. But you mentioned there about using Reddit to sort of market, almost like for market research, for creating the community. What kind of ways did you use Reddit? Because you were big in the scene before you kind of created your product. Was it just kind of getting to chat to people, and did you do any market research, or did you want to create the product and then see if there was a market? How did you use social media to kind of promote and sort of market your product?
Yeah, because I think it was like intrinsically market research, but we didn't approach it as market research. It was more so just like, oh, I'm part of this community. Let's share this thing that like might help these people, and lo and behold, it did. So people always ask like how much of business is luck. Like I would say a lot of it's hard work for sure, but to be in the position to be uh, to be able to even do hard work is very, very lucky. So it just so happened that this community on Reddit did like this idea of stepping away from supplements and having something that's a lot more portable and a lot more lifestyle oriented.
So what was the inspiration then to take it to Shark Tank? I mean, I've spoken to other people who've gone on Shark Tank before. But what did you think about that at the time? Was this, could you tell me about the process for it? How you created your sales pitch, the kind of the experience from it? Did you gain more from the actual act of being on the show? Like how did things sort of pan out for you in that?
Ryan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think, well, originally we had a producer from Shark Tank reached out to us, I want to say back in like 2016. So pretty shortly after we had launched the business, and we did the producer video, we did all that, but I was still working at Hulu at the time, and Hulu was a joint venture between Disney, NBC, and Fox. And so any affiliate apparently was ineligible to go further in the Shark Tank process. So that automatically made us not let. Yeah, we just couldn't go on to the next steps. And so Kent and I think at the beginning we were a little bit discouraged, but we just kept going, just kept grinding. And in 2019, someone reached out and they're just like, you guys would do well in Shark Tank. You guys should, you guys have a perfect product for it. Why don't you guys give it a shot? And we kind of told them like, our history about it. And it was like coming down to the last casting. So there was the casting in LA, New York, Texas, Florida, all were done. And there was the last one in July, and it was out in Phoenix, Arizona. And we had like a couple days to prepare for it. So Kent and I hopped on a plane, and we were in Phoenix for like less than 20 hours. I think we flew in late at night. We had the casting call, which was like a 60-second casting call pretty much, where we just pitched the product, and we were done, and we flew back. And we were really nervous because we had, I think it was like a 50-60 page paper application that you had to submit. And then Kent, do you remember when you got the call? It was maybe like 2-3 weeks after that.
Like 2-3 weeks after, but it was funny because when we were in Arizona doing the casting call, they were so like there was like zero affect in their face. So it was like, okay, did we do well or did we not do well? We had
as deadpan as you can be. So if you're like a judge, I mean, the person who was like our casting director was like the best poker face. Like you literally did not know if it was like, oh, did we nail it or did we bomb? Did we do really bad? Like there was no emotion at all. So Ken and I afterward we were pretty frustrated because we were just like, wow, that 60 seconds, like we flew all the way out here. That seemed like we had no reaction. That person seemed to not enjoy, our pitch at all. So, we thought kind of like the worst, that we definitely didn't get it. And then I think a couple of weeks later, we got a call saying that, oh, you are now in the video portion. So we had to do, what was it, like a 15-minute video interview application?
Yeah, it was like, I remember I was in like Aspen too. The whole process was like so convoluted. Yeah, it was like the legal paperwork. We get the phone call later. There's like the video application we had to send into so the producers see it, and then it was like us because I was in Aspen for some like gig, and so we were like uh, recording recording on Zoom, us doing the pitch together, and then sending that in. So you know, I guess like at the end of it all, it was a major blessing in disguise that all this didn't happen when we first started the business. Because with even the questions that Shark Tank asked, like all the legal documents, all like the just whatever it is on, capital equity, like the foundational parts of raising money, we were so naive about it um, in 2016 that in this later stage, being able to go in, being able to navigate the waters of the paperwork and the videos and everything the producers wanted, and also be able to navigate the the deals the sharks were trying to give us. Um, I don't think any of that would have been we, or at least we wouldn't have had any framework by any means to be able to handle that if it was earlier on.
I would say Shark Tank is probably the best way to prepare yourself for like a business pitch deck though. So the amount of preparation, the amount of like kind of internal questions that Kent and I had to ask ourselves about the business and like how we wanted to approach the business was like such a good exercise. So, I mean, all in all, like I think that show is so well run, and the fact that they have to do casting calls all around the country, they get tens of thousands of applications. I can't speak to like what the exact numbers are, since probably that's all like internal. But I mean, they get so many applications and so many different types of businesses, and for them to filter it out and then have all these entrepreneurs go on the show. I mean, we're just really lucky and fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to do that. And it was a very nerve wracking experience. I think it was probably the most nervous I'd ever been in my life, just because if you're in a closed room with investors and you stumble upon something, or you're pondering, or you kind of look weird, it's fine because it's in a closed room. But on Shark Tank, it was like you're potentially being seen by millions and millions of people on air, and it's pretty nerve wracking, I would say.
Well, you did a fantastic job. But I mean, you've talked before about when you back in the days that you had slept in the car for a while, that you were sleeping on friends' couches. To go from that to become like millionaires in the terms of the business, for creating such an amazing product, for building this humongous community and the diversification of your products and stuff. What has that taught you about business? What did the whole Shark Tank, well, call it episode, what has it taught you about business, about life? Did it strengthen your friendship? What did you learn from that experience compared to where you originally came from?
Yeah, I think it's just I think it just always goes back to perseverance, and what mentally is going like if you let negativity affect you at any point, and which it's very hard to do obviously, but like having that negativity affect you and preventing yourself, like Ryan was saying, like fear, if you let fear overtake you, then you'll never even have these opportunities to begin with. But if you slowly start overcoming your fear on certain things and letting even like a little bit of light through the cracks, that's when you could at least let something grow. So I think all those moments were necessary in many ways. Like even all the hard parts of the business that it's that could have brought us under, or um, all the stress that you had to deal with, and aging way more than if we probably didn't start a business. All those things are, I think, necessary things to uh, be where we are and be content.
How do you define success for the business? As you're sort of learning and you're sort of building these skills, you're taking on employees. About how are you finding the delegation of terms of like leadership, of running the various parts, because you're the CEO and CFO at the moment. But how do you work on a day-to-day basis? How are you looking to diversify the products? You know, how difficult is it not just to sort of rest on the laurels of the success you've already had? Is it just the motivation that's now pushed you to want to keep expanding and developing? Is it just that joy of finding, seeing where you can go and learning, as much about yourselves as a business?
I think in a lot of ways we're just getting started, but in terms of how I would define success, it would be balance. So finding the balance between, everybody on our team culturally enjoying the work that they're doing and being able to, challenge them and help them grow in their own careers respectively. And then for Kent and I think, we've built something great as like a foundation, but for us, I think we're just getting started. We're trying to launch, different products in terms of, a common clarity product within the gum and mint space or a multivitamin in the gum and mint space. And, we're trying to take what we've learned and apply some efficiency to it, but at the same time, not jeopardize who we are and why we started it. To start it off, Ken and I are super active and we wanted that balance. We wanted to continue to travel. We wanted to enjoy time with friends and family. And we don't want to have a business that takes away all of that. We want to be able to have balance between, relationships and business and grow a company that, our coworkers enjoy going into every day. And that's super key for us.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
Did you really kind of bond over playing Super Smash Brothers every day? Because you seem to have this amazing connection with one another.
Yeah.
How have you developed such a strong friendship? What advice would you give to other people looking to go into business with friends and stuff like that?
I think you have to have fun. I mean, Kent and I met. I'll tell you the story. So Kent and I met. I was a freshman. Kent was a sophomore. It was a Japanese class for bilingual speakers. So Kent's family is Japanese. My family is Chinese, but both born and raised Japan. And I lived in Japan for 5 years, from 2000 to 2005. And so for us, we went in this class. It was super small, and Kent and I sat next to each other, and we just kind of hit it off. And I know it sounds super cliche, but the moment I met Ken, I was like, oh, this guy's really interesting. I want to get to know him better. And, we bonded over Super Smash Brothers on N64. We bonded over skateboarding, and then I found out he was training heavily in martial arts, and he found out I was, a runner in my previous life. And we kind of just bonded over all sorts of things. And it wasn't just one common denominator, but the fact that, we enjoyed each other's company. And that might not be the case for, I wouldn't start a company with, most of the people in my life, but, Kent's one of the hardest working people I know in my life. And so that motivated me, because I tend to be a person that, I like to lay back and chill a lot of the time. And Kent's definitely that person that is a go-getter. And that inspires me in so many ways.
Without that balance, like, one of the best things is, because Ryan and I hang out all the time also. And like when we hang out, like, yeah, we talk about business, but most of the time we just kind of hang out. Like, I'll go over to his house and then we'll just play like card games or watch a movie and, like drink and have fun with like our other friends. And it's sometimes because I see other friends that have started businesses with each other and their entire friendship gets defined by the business, more so than the business getting defined by their friendship. And I think that balance, that's just like so like amazing.
Because I think that's why you guys have been as successful as you are, as well as it's not so much just the product, which is amazing. It's also the fact that there's that story there. There's the bond between yourselves. You're both transparent. You're both really honest, and there's that there's that trustworthiness between you both. But people fall in love with the story as much as the product. But how are you finding becoming leaders and, becoming the transition from the guys who were like, painting murals, like you used to go snowboarding, play, do martial arts and stuff like that. Have you got from that transition through to becoming businessmen, leaders? How difficult have you found that transition?
Man,
That's
I,
a good question.
there's like moments where I'm just like, what? Because there's like moments early on where I was me personally, I was just so hesitant to tell people what to do. Like, because it came off as telling people what to do versus like, okay, well, let's like kind of strategize and build systems and build efficiencies here. And like, we all have, delegated roles, and you just adopt kind of, and being able to adopt those roles. It, it was just, there was a time where it just kind of flipped. Like, there's so much stuff going on, and every single person in the company had to understand, like, well, we either go crazy trying to do everything, or we all become
Right.
masters of our own departments and try to move forward and work work in parallel with each other. And
Right.
that's, I feel like, when that shift happened, that leadership shift happened. And I think there's still way more to learn on in regards to what it means to be a good leader. But yeah, that there was like a distinct moment that, at least for me, like a switch flipped.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn it, and in terms of managing and trying to be able to communicate my thoughts, that's like a work in progress. But I would say throughout the process, I have gotten better at kind of helping to delegate, because I think in the beginning it was Kent and I and Tyler, and we're just basically doing everything. And then now that we're hiring people who are better at what we could ever do in that specific department, it's like learning how to like let go and then have them run with it, and then also just kind of chime in terms of, oh, how does this strategy play into the bigger picture. And it's been pretty cool to see. I think for me the biggest part is like learning to let go and then delegate, and then also see like how they can thrive and come back with ideas that I could have never come up with.
Because yeah, that's actually something I would love to hear, because that's something I was going to say was it's the hardest part is to say I don't know this, or I'm not as good as somebody else at it, or I could, we could get somebody in better to do it. And as guys, sometimes our ego lets us kind of get locked into place thinking we have to do everything. We can't trust other people. And it's
Right.
great that you've been able to, in such a initial business, you've been able to trust people and open up and find these people, they're the right people to do these things. And you've learned it now rather than down the line, where some businesses have gone out, friendships and organizations have crashed because they can't admit, they can't delegate, they can't be open and allow other people in. But so, can you give me a little bit of advice now on, on Miro? I mean, for people who are listening who are thinking, "Oh, this sounds like a great product," is there anybody who's this is designed for? Is this available to like athletes, non-athletes? Is this suitable for people in business, or is it better suited for people who are looking to, maybe enhance their reaction time in the gym and stuff like that? What's your sort of market, or is it applicable to all?
Yeah, I think it's totally applicable to everyone. And, you know, I will caveat that statement by saying, if you are expecting uh, like a pre-workout that has 300 milligrams of caffeine with beta alanine in it and taurine, and if you're expecting effects like that, our product is not for you. Our product is something that you could take throughout the day. We're giving you that extra boost, that extra mental energy to be able to tackle whatever it is, versus just strapping like a jetpack on you to fly to the moon and then come crashing back down. So, like, again, as we're saying about our own lifestyles, we want to create something that's constantly pushing us to go forth and find balance. Most most importantly, find balance, but also like push ourselves to kind of enjoy everything that we want to do And NeuroGum and NeuroMint, at least in our heads, was that product that, felt like we needed to develop into the business it is today, and beyond.
Because Ryan, I think you said on another podcast about being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's something I've noticed a lot of very successful people have sort of talked about as being a trait that's helped them to that sort of level of success. Is that the kind of thing that the Clarity gum can help with, where it can make us kind of build the resilience and mental toughness? Is this the kind of thing, like, how would somebody use this, take the mints and stuff like that? I mean, obviously they're not going to get flagged on a drug test, for example, but how should we use this? How's the best way of using this to start enhancing and evolving our lives?
So like Kent was saying, it's we wanted to create a product that was more balanced. So it's not like a pre-workout or a large monster with like 300 milligrams of caffeine. It's not going to punch you in the face, but it's going to give you that like nice boost, that focused feeling, no crash after. And I think that's been kind of our mantra in life. It's like you were saying earlier, it's just like I've had to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and part of that was like what I went through, earlier in my life. So I was 19 in 2009. I was in a really bad snowboarding accident, and I was paralyzed from the waist down. I spent 3 months in like the ICU. I spent about 2 years and 15 surgeries, going through in and out of rehab. And this was like, in the height, during college when I was a sophomore. Everything seemed to be going right, and I think at that time, you get placed into this position where you're very uncomfortable, very uncertain. No one really kind of has an answer, and doctors kind of give you a very generic answer of like, okay, well, your life's gonna be very different, and here's why, but not really like, okay, how am I gonna feel better? What's the timeline? What's on the horizon? And I think for me, it was like finding that balance of being uncomfortable, and then being comfortable with that. And so, asking for help and being able to still try things that were, different, or doing things that were the same, but, just different. So like, traveling again, or, Kent and I, the idea of NeuroGum really kind of sparked when we were getting our scuba certification. And that was in 2013. I didn't know I can get scuba certified after, a spinal cord injury and being paralyzed. And, to my surprise, there's so many things that I can do, and it's just different. And I think, we approach the company in a way where, we're trying to offer something that people are used to and people want, like balance, but then doing it in a different way. And for us, that was like kind of gum and mint. So in a lot of ways, a lot of our personalities have been injected into the brand. And I think that's why Kent and I feel so passionate about it. And, we take all this user feedback and customer feedback, and we really, really try to improve it every step of the way.
So what would you say to somebody who's had a similar injury, or is letting something like that, is create a story that's saying to them that they can't do something like this? Because we've all got the kind of like a novel in us, or we all have a goal or a dream and stuff like that. But a lot of people kind of, can't get past this fear. But you've bounced back, and you both made such an amazing product. You've built this great community. What advice would you give to somebody listening who's still saying, "Oh, but I can't do because of X, Y, Z"? Because you guys have shown that you can go and achieve your dreams. You can create an amazing thing. You can create, get into these markets. You can create a product that is loved throughout the world, it seems. What would you say to somebody just now who's still humming and hawing and not sure what to do?
I think you just almost answered your own question. It was like, I can't. So I would say, once you get to the mentality of like, oh, I can't, and it becomes this mantra, that becomes a really difficult cycle to get out of. And I was in that position, after my injury. The first 6 months, I was, in denial, thinking that this was, a fluke. I was going to walk out of the hospital. The doctors are wrong, and then, year one passes by, year two, and then I was in like the biggest depression of my life. And then thinking that, oh, these are all the things I can't do. And I think for me, it was a turning point when, you realize that there are a lot of things that you can do, and the things that you were able to do before are now, you're doing it differently. And I think that starts with that mentality of like, oh no, I can, I just have to do it differently. And the fact that I can is like the first step into getting it into motion. And then you start getting into this mantra of like, instead of I can't, I can. And, you start building out these relationships, and you start, attracting, the opportunities to place yourself in a position where you might be able to start a business, or you might start a new job, or you might, move to a new city that you've always wanted to move to, but, you're afraid to just take that leap of faith. So I think my general advice would just, it's okay to be in that like headspace of, feeling kind of lost, but eventually, there should be a point where, you got one life to live, and this is your one shot. So you don't want to look back on it thinking that, I didn't do that, but I should have. And I think there's no perfect time to do anything, but there's definitely a time where, you just gotta take that chance, and it'll usually always work out for the better.
Well, you've certainly built a brand that everybody seems to love. Have you got any sort of like testimonials that have blown you away from people who've used your products? Because from what I've read, there's been an amazing amount of, versatile in terms of men and women, young and old, people who are competing, people who aren't competing, who use your products. But has there been any sort of testimonials that you've had that really just really made you smile, has sort of blown you away by what your products stand for them?
Do you have any? Yeah, there's a lot, but
Yeah.
can't
Oh, I'm gonna will a lot. Like, I think the turkey one that you should say is like amazing. I think there's like, I remember really early on, I got this like email. It was like the customer service line. It's like, I'm a 79-year-old man. I do yoga every single day, and then before my yoga session, I chew NeuroGum, and it gets me motivated to do yoga every single day. It was something like that, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like that's a uh, that's one that definitely sticks in my head. Or like people who are like, oh, and we don't make any claims on like for like it working for ADHD or anything, but we do get a lot of messages that are just like, I have ADHD, and there's a lot of things that I hate the medication I take. There's a lot of things that don't work for me, and I chew neuro, and like for some reason I just feel like I do work a lot better. Like this is something that's really helping my life. And when you hear stories like that, it's just amazing. I don't know. There are a lot of them, but there are the few that do definitely stand out and motivate you to just keep working even harder and make your product better and better.
Yeah.
So what do you want the evolution, and what do you want the the development of your business, and are you just enjoying the ride at the moment and just keep going and just seeing what your customers want and creating things and finding out about that and your sort of friendship and life at the moment? Or have you got set plans? Because we're going through the COVID-19 just now, which put a large scale kind of dent in people's marketing and deployment plans. How is it affecting you as a small business? Well, I say small, but
yeah, we're definitely
global phenomenon.
I mean, thankfully, we were an e-commerce oriented business to begin with, and then went into retail. Unfortunately, the retail side of things is obviously a bit disrupted right now, but we were able to very easily shift back to our e-commerce roots and do continue revenue growth. And to answer your first question, it's again, since Neuro is a company that's so built on our own lifestyles and so built in a way that I think Ryan and I have been like passionately, how do I say it? It's like Neuro itself is an embodiment of all the things that Ryan and I love, and the culture, the community, the employees, everyone that we cultivate around it share whatever the foundational like connection is to what Neuro represents. So, you know, if it's something that continues to like grow and be profitable, and it's that something that could support our lives and our well-being, then we don't see any reason to give it up or sell it or stop by any means. And on the flip side, if we do think like, okay, like this is a partner or someone's gonna, whoever it is that's buying the business or acquiring the business is gonna help more people get access to it, then like hell yeah, like that's also amazing. So we're taking it a day at a time. We're continuing to just try to make Neuro the best thing it could possibly be within the realm of possibility, and we're still ticking.
For people listening, what do you want them to take away from this? Is it the belief that they can go and create a product, that it is able to, you don't need to have £50,000 in the bank, you don't need to know everything. You can go and, the journey of it is as much fun as the destination of making money?
I would say 100% the journey is really the part that you're going to enjoy the most. And we've heard this a lot from, other entrepreneurs who are, wildly successful and have had, companies that have sold or, or the hundreds of millions of dollars. And the one thing that they all say is to, enjoy the journey, because it goes by so fast. Like, I look back on the last 5 years, really like 7 years, and it's kind of like gone through like in a blink of an eye. But there's so many memories along the way that have been so enjoyable, despite the ups and downs and kind of the fears of failing or, the fear of cash flow, etc. But I would say 100% enjoy the journey. That's the best part.
Yeah. If you're not passionate about it, if you don't enjoy it, and like in using the word enjoy, I think it's like it's not going to be like a beautiful road with like flowers, laid on your path. There's going to be the ups and downs, but that's what makes it so exciting. But if you're so passionate about what you're creating and you create it in the way you want to create it, then you're going to enjoy every second of it. Persevere, dive in, do it.
Well, I think you both should be super proud of what you've created. I mean, to keep your friendship, to have it grown and developed, and to have gone and made a product that you wanted, and to have created this global empire, to create this loving community who I couldn't find anything bad to say about it. It's amazing. It shows people what it can be achieved in life. We don't have to just sit in the status quo. We can go and achieve our dreams, and that's why I find your story so inspiring, and that's why I'm so glad to have you on the show. I mean, I'd love to have you on again, really go into the sort of nitty gritty of it, really dial down. But for people who want to find out more about you, again, try the product, to find out your social media, get in touch, find out the new projects that you're coming out with. How can we keep in touch and find out more?
Yeah, you can find us on our website at getneuro.com, or Instagram at neurogum. And that's usually where we give the updates. I mean, we also have our personal Instagrams where we're always like, talking about neuro stuff. So you could probably find that on the internet as well by just searching our name.
And is there anything you want to mention? Anything, the floor is open to you guys. Is there any projects coming up? Is there any kind of announcements that we should be looking out for? Or are you holding any sort of online events that people can tune into?
We're still doing this really cool campaign, and we're partnering up with Daniel Lubetsky and Kind Bar, who is actually one of our guest judges on Shark Tank. But we're donating a lot of product to frontline workers. So to date, our company's donated 12,000 units of product, and we're donating another 15,000 to, nurses, doctors, EMT, firefighters, police officers, anybody who can reach out to our customer service and let us know, and we'll send some free samples over to them.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on and to learn about the story and how you've kind of taken a dream for a lot of people and made it a reality. And I wish you nothing but success for the future. It's amazing to see what you've done, and you're just going to go from strength to strength.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.